Excuse me.
Story to share with you a little bit about why we do what we do and what compels us to be involved in this business of our country. And almost 15 years ago, I took my father back to his old air base. My dad is 90 years old. He's still living at the farm.
How's the volume?
I grew up in a little place called Paint Creek, Texas, about 16 miles from the closest place that had a post office. So I'm a very rural young man. I grew up on a dryland cotton farm. My mom bathed us on the front porch in a number 2 wash tub. We had an outhouse, so I kind of our country back in 1943, and by 1944 he was a crew member on a B-17 in East Anglia, just north and east of Cambridge. Flew 35 missions over Nazi-held Germany. Was very fortunate to be able to, in those days, to come home safe. He understood about sacrifice as his crew members were lost during that period of time. And Dad had never been back to that air base. He wasn't too far away from where I served as an aviator back in the 1970s. I was at RAF Mildenhall. But I took my dad back. We went to the American Cemetery in which is just outside of town, where he had buried his waist gunner in October 1944. We had a memorial service there on Memorial Day. And then we went across the English Channel to that American cemetery above Omaha Beach. It's one of the most powerful places I've ever been in my life. There are over 9,000 graves. Pristine, beautiful place. White crosses and stars of David, designating these young Americans' last resting place. Interestingly, every one of those headstones faces west. West across the Atlantic Ocean. West to the America that they love, the America they would never return home to. And it struck me that day that they are there in silent judgment. And we have to ask ourselves, have we earned their respect? Have we earned the sacrifice that they gave for us? And that's a profound question, I think, for all of us as we engage in this process of electing the next president of the United States. And the seriousness of what this is about. And I offer myself up as an individual who not only has been involved in public service for a fairly substantial part of my adult life, but as someone, as a chief executive of, as Sam shared with you, the 12th largest economy in the world, an individual with a record and also with results. And I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish in my home state over the course of that 14 years. Government can either get in the way, be an impediment, or it can help lower hurdles. Those of you who are farmers, you understand that and government, frankly, government can really put cost to your farming operation in a lot of different ways. said, you know, a John Deere tractor has a lot of cost embedded in it. As a matter of fact, when you calculate the cost of regulations in America, not just for farmers, but for all of us, for the average family of four, it's about $15,000 a year is what government federal regulations cost us. That's a stunning number when you think about it. And my question is, what do we get for that? And one of the challenges of the next person who's going to be the President of the United States is to really put the cost benefits of all these regulations that are going on out there. Is it in our best interest to have this EPA that just grinds out these regulations day after day after day? Or would we be better off to have an administrator of that agency that actually took a look at, is our environment being impacted in a positive way with the cost of this? Do a cost-benefit analysis, if you will. That's what my executive experience brings to the table. For 14 years as the governor of the state of Texas, we were looking at those kind of things. And here's what I want to share with you, just 3 little vignettes, if I may, and the result of those and how those affected the people in that state. Sam shared with you that the state of Texas really grew back through the 2000s. We added over 5.6 million people to our population rolls. That's a lot of people, isn't it? That's a lot of people. That's almost 2 Iowas. In the 2000s, that's how much the state grew. During that same period of time, we had ups and downs in our economy, like everybody had, but by and large, our economy grew and we created jobs from the end of 2007 through the end of 2014, which I think inarguably one of the most difficult times economically that this country's been in since the Great Depression. Texas created 1.5 million new jobs during that period of time. The rest of the country, collectively, the other 49 states, lost 400,000 jobs. Think about that. That is a stunning juxtaposition. 1.5 million jobs created versus 400,000 lost by the rest of the country. And you ask yourself, why did that happen? And it happened because we freed people from over-taxation, over-regulation. We put protections against frivolous lawsuits into place, and we put accountable public school policies into place in our public schools. And our public schools are pretty big. Somewhere between 4 and 5 million people, young people, in that public school system. In 2003, Texas was 27th in the nation in high school graduation rate. About in the middle of the pack. Some people thought that was okay. I didn't. I thought we could do better. And we started putting policies into place, like the largest teacher incentive pay program in America. We expanded charter schools by a substantial amount. We started testing our kids, 4th and 8th grade reading and math. Then we could tell if they were having challenges early on and intervene and get them back on track. Here was the result of that education policies. In a short 10-year period of time, by 2013, Texas had the 2nd highest overall graduation rates in America. That is a powerful change. There is nothing that impacts a young person's life more than graduating them from high school. We give them the key to the future. They were 27th in the nation before. Today they're 2nd highest in America. I mean, that's the type of changes that really matter. The reason I share with these vignettes is because these are issues that the state needs to be involved with, not Washington, D.C. We were able to make graduation rate without participating in No Child Left Behind, without participating with Race to the Top, and without participating in Common Core. I'll go back and talk about two other little areas. And one of them has to do with the environment. 5.6 million people added to the population rolls in the state of Texas. That is a lot of people, and what else did we say? That's a lot of pickup trucks on the road. Think about it. 5.6 million people came into the state or organically grew in that state during that period of time. That's a lot of growth, pickup trucks, exhaust, right? Non-point source pollution. Texas is also home to one of the largest refining industries in America, if not the largest refining. I want to say like 25% of the unleaded gasoline in America is refined in Texas. We got a huge chemical manufacturing industry along that Gulf Coast as well. What? That's emissions, right? Up in the air. We also happen to be at a latitude that is very conducive for the production of ozone. Down there, y'all are hotter today than we are. That's another story. But my point is, I just gave you three examples of why the air in Texas, if you ask the conventional wisdom, or some on the left would say their air is dirtier because they've grown so much, they've got all of those vehicles, non-point source pollution, they got the refining industry, they have that latitude for ozone production, their air is going to be dirty. But here's the fact. Nitrogen oxide levels in the last decade are down 62.5%. Ozone levels are down 23%, and regardless of where you may be on the whole issue of climate change, carbon dioxide levels are down 9%. Wasn't that the point? Isn't that the point of what we're supposed to be doing? We did that, I will suggest to you, not because the federal government came in and said, we did it in spite of the EPA. We did it by putting incentives into place. Incentives like we gave tax credits to companies to change over their old dirty burning fleet engines to cleaner burning fleet engines. We did it by transitioning out of older dirty burning power plants into cleaner burning natural gas plants. We did that because the people of Texas care about their environment. I will suggest to you, more so than some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. The third thing I want to share with you is obviously the job creation that occurred there, and people, tax, regulations, legal system. And what we did on the legal side, we put tort reform into place. We protected the medical community in particular from frivolous lawsuits. There are over 35,000 more licensed physicians in Texas in 2013 than there was a decade before. That happened not because of Washington, D.C.'s wisdom. I will suggest to you it happened in spite of Washington, D.C. My point with sharing those with you is I think it's time for us to have a President of the United States that respects our Constitution and understands the wisdom of our founding fathers when they talked about that the federal government is supposed to do a few things and do those few things well. As a matter of fact, they're enumerated in the Constitution. Things like stand a strong military. Things like securing our border. Wouldn't it be awesome if the federal government just did those two things and got those two things right? I want to address both of those just quickly. Today we have the smallest army. You guys that served in the army in the back. 30,000 because of sequestration. We are down to one fighter in production, the F-35. We have 10 carriers. There is clear evidence that a minimum of 11 carriers are what we need. I will suggest to you, the Heritage Foundation said we need 13, and I tend to agree with them, because you look and see what's going on in the South China Sea today, and 10 carriers puts us in jeopardy. Our Ohio-class submarines are reaching the end of their useful life. We do not have a plan in place to replace them or to refurbish them. I am really concerned about what's going on in our country relative to our military and our ability to defend our interests. I kind of feel like it's 1979. If you all recall 1979, we had a president who was hollowing out our military. Our grain was embargoed from being sold to the Soviet Union. You remember when they embargoed our grain in 1979? Our Olympic athletes didn't get to go compete against the Russians. Jimmy Carter was going to show up. It didn't let our kids go compete and represent America. Our embassy was overrun in Iran. We were on our back. We were in a funk. I feel like it's 1979. But here's the good news, and it's the message I want you to leave here with today. It's why I'm so optimistic about the future of this country. And I am. I think we're just a few good decisions and a leadership change at the top away from the best years this country's ever had. I know this. I'm optimistic about the future of this country because I know the American people. You remember, think about 10 years later, 1979 to 1989. Here's what happened. We saw the Berlin Wall fall. We saw Soviet communism defeated because we elected a president who understood that Americans, when they are free from overtaxation, overregulation, they will respond. And when America is strong, the world is safer. And we can do this again. Think about who we are. This is an amazing country. We are so resilient. We've been down before. We went through a civil war together. We've been through 2 world wars. We went through the Great Depression. We made it through Jimmy Carter. We will make it through Barack Obama. Trust me on this. We can do this. And I want to share with you just why I'm optimistic and give you just a glimpse into why economically we get this country back on track. And that really ties to practically everything. We obviously are going to have the economy come back so we have the revenues to be able to build our military back so that we can protect Western values and defend America's interests and our allies around the world. And I think it goes back to American energy and North American energy policy. North American energy policy, and I talk about Canada, the United States, and Mexico. There's more known energy reserves in those 3 countries than Russia and Saudi Arabia. Open up the XL pipeline. Use those resources. I would rather rely upon our friends in Canada to be delivering energy for the United States use to make us more secure energy-wise than Venezuela or some mullah in the Middle East. Use that North American energy. All of that North American energy. We were talking about the ethanol that's produced right here in Iowa, the biofuels. I think there's our universities and our private sector intellect has the ability to find ways to use code that is reasonable and not negative to our environment. I think that technology is out there. We need to use all of our North American energy resources. And here's the result that will happen. You will see downward pressure on the cost of electricity because of this abundance of energy, and you drive down the cost of electricity. You couple that with corporate tax policy that cuts the corporate tax rate. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the Western world. You cut that 10%, every accountant worth their salt will tell you that will raise mid-level wages by 5 to 10%. Every blue-collar worker, I'm telling you, every union person that cares about having a pay increase ought to be saying, Perry, I'm voting for you. You lower that corporate tax rate and raise my salary, raise my wages. And that's our story. We can tell that. We can do that. Because if you lower that electricity cost, you give incentive with that lowering of the corporate tax rate to manufacturers to come back on shore. We've driven manufacturers offshore in this country for decades now because we've overtaxed them, overregulated them. And you put those policies into place, and we can bring manufacturing back into this country, and we can have a renaissance in manufacturing like this country's never seen before, and put people to work all across this country. I mean, that's what we have the potential to do. I'm incredibly positive and optimistic about the future of this country. And I hope you are too. Is there one of those cards in here? I'm going to wrap up. These are laying out across the table. And this kind of gets back to where I started that story about you wouldn't be here if you didn't care about this country. And we're about to choose the next leader of this country. And I want you to take a look at this. If there's something on here, there's about 6 or 7 little items on here like caucusing for Rick Perry up to including hosting the house party. I hope I can earn your trust and your support. And let me wrap up with why. I happen to think after 8 years of a young, inexperienced United States Senator who has led this country, and I think we are in poor economic conditions, and I think our position in the world has been the greatest because he does not have the experience of dealing with the challenges that face this country in a global sense. And that executive experience really matters. If you get on an airplane in Des Moines to fly to New York City, I'm pretty sure you want the person sitting in the front left seat to be as experienced a captain of that airline as you can have. Somebody that's been through all kinds of experiences, has had lots of yellow and red lights flashing on that cockpit and knew how to deal with it. Instinctively knew how to bring that aircraft home with you and your family. If you happen to have a major medical procedure done, your choice is a seasoned surgeon or a young resident. Which one you gonna pick? This is the time in this country's history that I'll suggest that we long for seasoned executive experience. It matters where we find ourselves. 10 years ago plus, the space shuttle disintegrated over East Texas. Nobody gave me a manual. Said, here's how you're going to deal with this. In 2005, when Hurricane Katrina was coming into Louisiana, there were literally tens of thousands of people fleeing that storm coming into my state. Nobody gave me the how-to manual to handle those types of events. Last summer, when there were tens of thousands of people showing up on the border of Texas with Mexico, and the federal government was failing to do its constitutional duty, nobody said, here you go, Governor, here's how to deal with that massive problem and challenge you got on your border. The President of the United States was coming to Dallas, and I said, I'd like to meet with you, sir. he agreed. I appreciate his graciousness in meeting with me. But after a short conversation, I knew that he wasn't going to deal with this issue. And I told him, I said, Mr. President, if you don't secure the border, Texas will. I went back to Boston, Texas. I'd already deployed our Texas Ranger Recon teams, our Parks and Wildlife, and our Texas National Guard was then deployed to be a force multiplier. And we showed the country what can happen on that southern part of our border, which is where the vast majority of all these apprehensions were occurring. And by November of last year, we had a 74% increase in the apprehensions. Nobody gave me a manual last fall that said, Governor, here's how you deal with the Ebola that has landed in your state. The first place in this country it came was to Dallas, Texas. And Americans were scared. Americans had seen the devastation of this disease in Africa. It came to America. What Americans saw was the state of Texas stepping in, taking charge of this. Dr. Prezography, an extraordinary physician who'd worked with the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. They saw Dr. David Lakey, an infectious disease expert who had dealt with these types of challenges before, but not on this scale and not with this disease. And Americans, and literally the world, saw the state of Texas address this in a very competent way, and it gave them confidence about the leadership of the state of Texas. Up to and including the protocols that the CDC put into place all across this country came from the work that we did in Texas. That, I will suggest to you, is the kind of leadership this country is longing for, the kind of leadership this country needs. And there is one person that's going to be standing on that stage over the course of the next months as we debate the issues of the day, that has the experience and has the results to lead this country like nobody else, and that's Rick Perry. And I want to ask you for your support today. God bless you. Thank you. Down there, so I'll try to keep my answers short. Yes, ma'am.
You have the Republican vote. We're with you. What I've been reading is you have to shake loose some Democrats for making an emotional or just a loyal party vote. So what are you doing, or what does your presidency offer?
Well, I don't want to get too far out over my skis, but I don't have all the Republican votes yet. I appreciate your confidence, but I think it's really important to earn the trust of the Republican voters out there, that not only can we win the general election, and to win the general election, we've got to go get independents to vote for us. And I've got life's experiences of being able to do that in a state that's not necessarily a deep red state when it comes to, there's not anything that we did in Texas of size, of influence, that we did just with the Republican votes. Whether it was the major tort reform we passed, whether it was the educational reforms we passed, whether it was our budgets that we passed, educational processes, we reached across the aisle to get Democrats to help us. This last election, I think it's really important for us as we look at where the growth is in this country, for our nominee to be someone who is last November, November of 14, the governor and the lieutenant governor in Texas, two people that are very, very strong on the issue of border security. They got 45% of the Hispanic vote. I would get upwards 4 years ago, 40% of the Hispanic vote in Texas. And here's the reason. It doesn't make any difference whether you are Asian, whether you're African American, whether you are Anglo, or whether you're Hispanic. You want to live in safe communities. You want the best educational opportunities you can have for your children. You want to keep more of what you work for. And that's exactly what we did in the state of Texas. And I think it's important to talk about that and to implement programs across this country, or from a federal standpoint, to devolve this power back to the states, to let these states be able to have more freedom to put the programs in place. And at that particular point in time, I think all of those different groups are going to look and say, economically, that's the individual I want to vote for. So I think being able to clearly show people where the economic future of this country is bright. You're going to be able to keep more of what you work for. You're not going to be strangled by the regulatory world. You're going to have the opportunity for your children to do better, because you're going to have schools that make those opportunities available to them. That's how you reach out to individuals who share Republican values. I will suggest to you the Hispanic voter across this country, hardworking, patriotic, family valued, and want to keep more of what they work for. And that's the message that we're going to have. If you want to live free, you elect a Republican. Yes, sir.
Governor, this is the richest country in the history of the world.
And yet we have the highest child poverty rate in the industrialized world.
What would you do on that to help alleviate that problem?
With your president.
Devolve as much of this decision making in our country today back to the states. And let me share with you why I think that is so important. I've talked to you about a number of issues: education policy, environmental policy, economic policy, that if it devolves back to the states, they will be able to implement programs that will affect that. Let me ask you this question. Yes, sir.
What is the child poverty rate in Texas?
The child poverty rate, I can't tell you this off the top of my head, but here's what's really important for us to be getting our arms around. Who do you think can better deliver a program for health care? Let's just take the health care side of it. Washington, D.C., or Terry Branstad and your legislature working with your health care providers in the state? Which one do you think would be most efficient, most effective, and deliver? Which one do you think?
I don't really understand the question.
Well, here's the. Today you have a federal government that basically says they know best how to deliver health care. It's called the Affordable Care Act. And I will suggest to you that is a debacle. It is going to make health care more costly. It is going to make health care less available.
So far, it's done exactly the opposite.
You are not paying attention to the same data that I'm looking at. You show me where that health care is more accessible today. Medicaid, doctors are covering Medicaid. Healthcare availability is shrinking today. Everyone that I'm talking to is telling me that. And I don't know where you're getting your information, but Mine's different from that.
I thought there was something like 14 million more.
More people with health insurance now.
Bam. Do you think that's the way that you're supposed to judge whether or not health care is being delivered? That's the mentality I will suggest to you that's wrong. In the state of Texas, for instance, we don't think you judge success by how many people government can force to buy insurance. We think it's about how many more people you can have access to good quality health care.
What does that have to do with child poverty?
Because where I took this with you was to the core issue of, is federal government or state government a better place to deliver that type of service of which the people want? And I'll suggest to you that, again, if it's child poverty that is your concern, it will be better, more efficiently, more effectively addressed at the state than it will be from Washington, D.C. If Washington, D.C. was the answer, this 50-year-plus war on poverty would have been a success. After trillions of dollars have been spent, it's not. So I suggest let's look at some of the places where we actually are seeing those types of improvements occur. And there are states out there that are making this work better. So my challenge is that if you keep doing something that you know is not going to give you a good result, that's not wise. And I think we need to be wise in this. And the wisdom, from my perspective, who's been dealing with this as a CEO of a rather large economy for 14 years, is to allow the states. Louis Brandeis, an old, very liberal Supreme Court justice, said that the states were the laboratories of democracy. And he said that states are supposed to experiment, come up with the novel ideas about how to deliver services to the people of their state. He said from time to time a state's going to foul up. He said they're going to make a mess. When I read that and I think about it today, I think about Colorado. That Colorado and their experiment with making marijuana legal, I think they'll look back on it here in a few years and think that, that may not have been the best interest of their citizens, but we'll see. I will defend their right to be wrong because I believe in the 10th Amendment. And again, if you really care about putting programs into place that will be effective and make a difference, I'll suggest you will find those solutions in the states before you'll find them in Washington, D.C.
Governor, County Supervisor has a question.
Yes, sir.
Governor, it was brought to our awareness today in our Board of Supervisors meeting that this community, Franklin County, is a sanctuary community. We didn't know that. Now, well, I had an idea because of some things that are going on, but
What are you going to do to address that where communities are not
standing up,
doing their job?
We must be a rule of law. Here are the laws. Here's the rule of law we got to follow. And if we can't agree that we're going to be a country of laws, then we have to have a real soul searching, I would suggest to you. But the federal government, this is a federal issue. You know me, I'm a rather strong 10th Amendment guy. If the solutions can be found at the state, but this is about the security of this country, which is a enumerated power that the federal government is to be engaged in. So this does deal with our national security, I think. And the federal government should cut off funding to any sanctuary city, county that I know that's.
Some things happen that are beyond.
But I'm just telling you, one of the ways you get people's attention is you quit sending the money. And I think you stop sending the money to any city or county, SCAP funding, the state criminal alien assistance program. I would cut those dollars off. I would clearly send the message that if you are not going to follow the statutes and the Constitution, then you're not going to share any of the dollars that have been flowing in the store.
Governor, okay, I'm Ted Biederman. I'm a retired physician, and you are totally right on Obamacare. Obamacare puts in more regulation. It slows down the number of people you can see. You become more and more inefficient, numerous doctors are stopping Medicaid and Medicare treatment because of the hassles of the federal government. And more people are going to the emergency room. So you are totally right. My other thought is the difference between a sheriff and a Texas Ranger is when you shoot a ranger, he keeps on coming. Yes, what plane did you fly?
I was at 1:30. I was attacked airline.
Okay, great.
I'm going to let you have the last word.
How do you anticipate dealing with personal religious freedom? And I reference the Northwest Bakery and the Religious Chapel in Des Moines.
The issue that I think a lot of us in this country who believe that the First Amendment means what it says, is that we're to have religious freedom in this country, and that 5 of those Supreme Court justices in their redefinition of marriage were incorrect. Now, that's my opinion. I'm going to respect the rules and the law of this country, but from the Oval Office, clearly sending the message that people of faith are going to be protected in this country is a very important role for the President of the United States. To stand up and to very clearly defend that First Amendment right of freedom of religion. Here's the other issue that I think we need to talk about, and the timeliness of it today. There is a very real opportunity that the next President of the United States could appoint upwards of 3 new Supreme Court justices in the next 4 years. I mean, when you look at the ages of those justices, there is a very real possibility, maybe even a probability over the next 8 years, that at least 3 Supreme Court justices could be replaced. I've got some experience with that. Again, you're not just getting rhetoric from me. I have a record that has results. Over the 14 years that I was the governor of Texas, I replaced 6 of the 9 Supreme Court justices on the Texas Supreme Court. And I'll just leave you with this. There was a reporter who did a story about my time in office and the impact that I had, the legacy, if you will, and they were talking about the courts. And a court observer said this: Perry put credentialed conservatives on the court, and he doesn't do squishy. So let me leave it at that. Thank you all for coming and being with us today. God bless.